Hey there, hi, how are you? This is episode 7 of my podcast, Gimme Empathy, and I'm your host, Scott Mercer. I've had a big weekend. I've been in Melbourne. First off, yes, it was cold. I flew down there from Brisbane on Friday to visit my sister's family. I have an 18-month-old niece. It was nice to see her. I hadn't seen her in a while. Since I saw her last time, she's up and walking and toddling around and generally creating chaos, and she's pointing at things and saying no. She had a fun game she liked to play with me where she would get a book off the shelf and toddle over to me and, give it to me. And then she'd wait expectantly and I would open the book and start reading. Then she would go back to the bookshelf and grab another book and repeat the process. There are definitely worse games you could play, I suppose, to fill your time. She is a real cutie, my niece. While I was in Melbourne, I caught up with a few people I hadn't seen for a while, quite a while, really. And over the 3 days I was there, I interviewed 4 people for the podcast. I normally interview like one person a week. The most I'd done was I interviewed Jesse Collier and Murray Bowler on the same day a few weeks ago. And so I'm pretty... And doing 4 in 3 days was pretty draining. I recorded one with an old friend of mine. It was definitely the longest single episode by far. It was, we talked for nearly 2.5 hours, and I think I'll definitely edit that one down to 2 episodes. There was some, it's funny like how people change when you don't see them in a while, and you just get, at most you get social media updates or updates from friends and stuff. But until you actually talk to them again and sit down with them, it's, people's lives can change pretty dramatically and shit happens to your friends when you're not looking. There's some really good talks that came out of Melbourne, and I'm really looking forward to sharing them all with you. Today's episode features another old friend I hadn't seen in a very long time, Sayke Temb. I went to TAFE with Sayke about 5 years ago or so. We were studying library services. And yeah, it was really wild for them to come over and be at my house after at most exchanging a few messages and Facebook comments over the years. Sayke's a really smart person, and they had some really interesting stuff to say on some psychological topics that blew my mind just a little bit. There is some pretty heavy content in this episode, so if you particularly don't want to hear about our topics, including child sexual abuse and suicidal ideation, maybe skip this one. It gets a bit intense. And also towards the end, we have a very frank and open discussion about sex and sexuality, which isn't, I guess, wouldn't be in the same category of trauma. But if you're, if you don't want to hear about that stuff, I guess this is mainly directed towards my parents. If you don't want to hear that, then you can tune out from that one. Finally, there are some spoilers in this episode for the movie Jurassic World and the video game Fallout New Vegas. I do mention in the episode right before we're about to talk about Jurassic World, and I think Fallout kind of springs up on you, but it's kind of a general spoiler. You probably don't care, do you? This is a warning for the pedants it's a warning for me, for alternate dimension Scott, who's found this podcast and is like, what? I never made a podcast in Earth C-176. But, well, in this one you do, and you talk about Fallout New Vegas, so go back and finish it, Alt Scott, before you listen to this, all right? All right. Episode 7, Sayke Temb. Cue the theme song. How's your tea?
It's good.
Just getting some levels. What did you have for breakfast?
I had a mug of milk and an Odie bar.
An Odie bar? What's that?
It's like a muesli bar, but it's like a baked oat cake shaped like a muesli bar. But
okay. Is it in the shape of Odie, Garfield's dog companion?
No. Oaty as in...
Oh, Oaty. Okay.
Yes.
That
because
makes a lot more sense.
It's made out of oats instead of muesli is oats, but yeah.
It's not made out of cartoon dogs.
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
No. That's, speaking of Garfield, my favorite joke about vaginas is about Garfield.
Do you want to tell your vagina joke?
Okay. It's kind of stupid, but it's just you know who has a really funny pussy?
Who?
John Arbuncle.
That's very good. So, who are you and how do we know each other?
My name is Sayke, and I met you at TAFE when I attempted to be a librarian.
So we were studying a diploma of library/information services.
Yes.
How long was it? Was it 2 years, a year and a half?
Yeah, I think it was only supposed to be 2 years. I did like 6 months of it. Not even. The only things I remember of it is lunchtimes with you and Kat, which were the best parts, and tiger jumpers.
Yes. Our tutor had a different tiger shirt for every day of the week. She loved tigers.
She was awesome. She was really nice too, actually. But yeah, I didn't go very far in that because it was a lot of math and counting and stuff, and my mental health kicked in, and I was like, no, can't do this. So I dropped out. But I'm glad I kept in contact with you and Kat.
I think you're one of the funniest people that I follow on social media.
Really?
Yeah, like in terms of, maybe this is something only I think of, but do you ever think of all your friends and imagine like if you were running a TV show and you had to put together a writer's room?
Yeah.
Like, I would want you in my writer's room.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
I think you're very witty and funny.
My social media is contained to Facebook. That's all. I don't have Twitter. But yeah, if something funny pops into my head, I want to write it down. So that's where I write it.
About once a month, I still have a chuckle to myself when I think of Chekhov's Mosasaurus.
Yeah. I really love that because it's so true as well.
We're talking about after you saw Jurassic World.
Yeah.
And I guess spoilers if you haven't seen Jurassic World, but they introduce an enormous Mosasaurus in the first act. In the final act, it eats the Indominus Rex.
Yeah. And so like it's so out of the blue and at the same time implausible because the Mosasaurus kind of launches itself out of the water onto land to grab this.
And like, was it waiting in that part of the pool the whole time just to catch a dinosaur out there?
Yeah.
It's like Sharknado level ridiculous.
I'm like, why hasn't, while the park was operating, this Mosasaurus just been jumping out and grabbing tourists the whole time?
Yeah. So, Sayke, what are you doing with yourself these days?
These days, I am studying my master's because I said, well, I'm obviously not able to do a diploma at TAFE, so I might as well go back to university and do a full master's. But I'm doing it in something I enjoy more, which is social work. I find that to really engage with an occupation or a work of any kind, it needs to be doing something that I think benefits society.
That's really interesting. I kind of have I don't do that. I do something boring so I can do interesting things in the rest of my life. So when you've had jobs in the past, like have you ever had like menial jobs like that?
No, I've led a fairly privileged life in that I've never had to work. That sounds really bad. I've never had to work to like pay bills and stuff while doing other stuff. So I've always been able to study full time when I've been studying. When I did work, it was as a teacher. So that kind of wasn't menial so much. It was like
very worthwhile.
Well, I don't know about that, but
or very theoretically, it's a very I guess worthy.
Yeah, helping people be less stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
That was my goal. I failed at it.
I did too when I did teaching.
You did teaching?
I studied teaching and I failed my degree.
Oh, cool. Well,
I failed my last prac twice, and they're like,
"Oh, wow,
you're not good enough. You're not getting this degree."
Yeah. Oh,
they were right.
Well, As long as you're okay with it.
I am now.
Yeah.
It's a rough patch.
Yeah, no, teaching wasn't for me. I enjoyed the actual making people learn stuff part, but the administration, the bureaucracy of it, the nepotism within education, the clickiness of other teachers, it just sucked. I don't do well with meaningless rules. I like rules, but they have to be there for a reason.
Yeah. People have to be able to explain why they're there. And if they say, because this is how it is,
Yeah.
like how is anyone supposed to respond to that? Especially an adult. Like that's something you say to children
Yeah.
when you can't be bothered explaining when you may have a good reason. But saying that to adults is crazy.
I don't even like doing it to children. Like trying to explain to someone why they've got the wrong color socks on is like the most meaningless thing in the world to me.
So part of it was having to enforce rules you yourself didn't believe in.
Yeah, and like uniform codes, jewelry code, hair. Like, I don't care what you do with your hair. If you sit in class and do the work and learn something, it's useless. But no, I stopped doing that, and then I had a nervous breakdown, and 5 years went by. But now I'm back at uni, doing stuff, and kind of I think I'm passing, which is good. I like passing.
And how long's the course?
It's only 2 years, but it's intense. It's like they break it up into like a semester of classwork and then a semester of prac, and then they repeat that again. So it's like exams and finals for 6 months, and then working full-time in a scary profession for 6 months, and then repeating it.
That's really, really intense.
Yeah.
Have you done prac yet for that?
No, I'm about to go into my first prac at a nice little community service place that deals with housing and homeless youth and a bit of drugs. They teach classes on how to parent teenagers, stuff like that.
Why is that not a compulsory class just in schools?
Why is that not? Like, if I was dictator of the world, everyone would be basically neutered until they took about 5 such classes.
Feel free to use that poncho if you want to fiddle with something or if you get cold.
No, I will just do itsy bitsy spider with my hands.
Cool. Also, like, if I ask a question and you're not comfortable with it, please tell me to just straight up fuck off at any point.
I will talk about pretty much anything.
In that case, what does a nervous breakdown look like for you? The one that you had after teaching?
I've had a couple, and it didn't happen because of teaching. I had some traumatic bullshit happen, which I've had happen quite a few times throughout my life. I'm a survivor of, I never know what to call myself, a survivor or a victim or a person who just had this happen. But I was sexually abused as a child, which kind of made me crazy through my teens, and led to my first kind of breakdown in my early 20s while I was attempting uni. But lots of therapy got me on track again, and then something really bad happened about 5 or 6 years ago while I was teaching, and that kind of set me in the same patterns that I'd learnt as a kid of basically shutting down. Like, I didn't leave home after this happened, and I quit teaching. I didn't leave the house. I moved back in with my parents. Didn't leave the house for a good 6 to 8 months without my mum. Like, my mum had to drive me everywhere. This is as an adult. I had to be reminded to eat, to shower, to do everything. Like, I was basically back as a little kid, more or less. I didn't have the mental capacity to take care of myself at all, because I just shut down completely, and got very agoraphobic, anxiety ridden, slept a good 12 hours a day.
You absolutely do not have to answer this if you don't want to. But can I ask, what was it that happened that time that triggered this?
It was... There are two ways I can describe it. One way where it sounds really bad. One way where it sounds like it's nothing at all. Basically, I was in a long-distance relationship with someone in Western Australia, and I moved over to be with them. And it wasn't a decision I took lightly. Like, it was something that had been like 2 years in the planning. And just before I was going to move over there, they decided that they wanted to be polyamorous, and I had to be okay with it or else. And I thought, okay, I can work with that. And then I got over there, and like 2 days into going over there, they were like, no, it's not working. We're breaking up, kind of thing.
So you just uprooted your whole life.
Yeah, I'd uprooted my whole life. And the other thing that happened was I was kind of abandoned over there. They lived in a house that was not near, like, it was out of town. To describe it, it was like adjacent to the Logan of Western Australia. Okay. But you know how Logan gets to be like country very fast? So like you can have a house that might be 10 minutes drive from like a suburb centre with shops and stuff, but for miles around it will be
surrounded by bush.
Yeah, nothing. And it was kind of like that. So they broke up with me, and then they went away for like a week, and I was left in this house by myself in the middle of summer with no, well, there was air conditioning, but it barely worked. But I didn't have a car. I had didn't have a key to the house. So if I did decide to just leave, like I would have had to leave all my stuff there in an unlocked house. Or if I locked the house, I couldn't get back in. So I was basically stuck at the house in the middle of the bush. It was very like Australian Gothic.
Yeah, it sounds like you were kind of a prisoner.
Yeah, I was. Well, yeah, I was. That's the bad way to, like, the scary way to describe it is like I was trapped in a house. They basically trapped me in a house for 5 days by myself. Like, the way to make it sound like nothing really bad happened was like, oh, this happened because you had a bad breakup. But there were extenuating circumstances.
They're pretty severe circumstances, I'd say.
But that just rebooted all the coping mechanisms I'd learned as a child, like withdrawal and dissociation and stuff like that. And I just felt, as a person, I felt completely useless and unlikable, and if I had the capacity for suicide, it probably would have been a really high risk, but that's just not, I have too strong a survival instinct.
So yeah, I guess you would have been very invested in this person over the course of the long distance relationship, and then to be like suddenly abandoned.
Yeah.
Must have been a massive shock.
Yeah, and like I did test runs. I made 2 or 3 trips out there beforehand to like, okay, what do we like living together? How do we work together? You know, how are we shopping? How are we doing chores? You know, things like that. Like, do we annoy each other completely?
And it was all fine in the test runs?
It was great. Like, I wouldn't have done it if I... And the other thing was that I was at a point in my career, like I just kind of been let out of a contract teaching. And so I was like, I kind of want to go somewhere else and teach for a bit. I was thinking of like doing the thing where you go over to England and teach for a bit, you know, that lots of Australians do. But this just gave me somewhere else to go. So I was already looking for like somewhere else to go. But this relationship was just like, okay, so there's where I can go, you know, and be a new person in a new town, build a life for a bit. And it just was so abrupt and sudden and jarring that it just really fucked me up and fucked up my sense of self-worth. Because I was like, okay, we've been in this relationship for how long, and I'm suddenly dropped for this new guy who was A, a weirdo, B, not as good looking as me. And I'm not great looking, but he wasn't either, in a worse way. So yeah, that fucked me up. I came home and I moved back with my parents, and I tried to like do relief teaching and stuff, look for a contract that was a bit more stable, but it just like everything that I hated about the education system got amplified at that point. And as my mental state kind of got worse and worse, I was just like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. Fuck it.
So that was 5 years before I met you at TAFE?
I think that was like 3 or 4 years. I don't remember what year we did TAFE.
Yeah, me neither.
So 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Time is like my least confident sense.
Yeah, you can think a period. I have in my head like periods of time based on jobs and relationships and bands, but actual numbers is a bit.
Yeah, if I really want a good idea of time, I kind of have to start at high school.
Yeah.
And then like I graduated high school this year, and then I did this many years of uni, and then I taught for this much, and then this happened, and then...
I actually keep like a big personal CV of my own that's not like for employment. It's just so I can remember what years I was doing what.
Yeah.
So how did you get from being in a very, very bad state after you got back from WA to getting back to a point where you could, go into TAFE and leave the house?
Well, I kind of hit rock bottom when I was finding myself actually like blacking out and losing time. Like I would kind of, just daydream and then find myself being like 6 hours later. And so I actually took myself to the hospital mental ward, or the mental intake. My local hospital had one of those separate to them. It wasn't in the emergency room. It was like the special, call this number and then come in. And I talked to them, and they weren't really helpful, but they did refer me to a shrink who was a really good shrink. Psychologist, I should say. I think of my psychologist as my shrink and my psychiatrist as my drug shrink. But no, they referred me to a really good psychologist, who then referred me to a really, really good psychiatrist who actually works at the Belmont Mental Hospital. So I go to the loony bin every 6 weeks.
And so what did they teach you that you hadn't learned when you'd previously been in therapy?
When I'd been through therapy when I was younger, it was a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. It was a lot of like activities that you can do to stop a panic attack, or to, calm down, or to think about why you're thinking about, so what led to me feeling this way kind of thing. When I started going back later on after this had happened, it was really like starting to delve into the reasons why I have these reactions. Like, so what happened to me as a kid that makes me do, react these things to these things? What about my parents? How they raised me? Because I was raised very religious. How that affected me, and what coming out as gay, how that affected me, and, and child abuse and sexual abuse, and how all these things have shaped me to, and what they mean, and kind of getting them into the right place, which is, it's hard to explain, but like putting everything into a place where I can accept it, that it happened, and I can understand how it's affected me, and then put it in that box.
And when that happens, is it a sudden revelatory thing, like a key being turned and, oh, that's why I have this reaction to this? Or is it just a slower, one day you're more okay with stuff that's happened?
Sometimes it's pretty fast, but I get really nervous about epiphanies because they can be pretty misleading or false. Like a lot of epiphanies rely on correlation and not causation.
Can you give an example?
just to make one up, it'd be like saying, I've never liked the color yellow. And it was because I was wearing a yellow shirt when this happened. And so that must be why I've never liked the color yellow, because of all these linked up things, when I just don't like the color yellow. That's a bad example, but I'm not a psychology major.
So how do you figure out when it's not just correlation, when it is actually causation?
You really have to go deep into it and like pull all the pieces apart. I find that when it comes to memory triggers and things like that, for anxiety, so anxiety triggered by a link to something from the past, trauma, is never just the one thing. For me, I should clarify. It's always like a cluster of triggers. So I can't just say, oh, this one memory trigger is causing this. I have to really break it down into all the different things that are causing that.
So do you have to unlock all the triggers?
Pretty much.
Wow. It's like the lockpicking minigame in Oblivion.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah. Or like a puzzle in Myst, where there's no...
That's even more apt because you don't know which part is part of that puzzle.
Yeah, and there's no explanation anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, God. Because the other week I was having a really bad, kind of hard week, and then the next week I had a really good week and I was feeling a lot better. And I applied something that I found out on the weekend to my change in mood, but I don't know if that's just correlation or whether it's causation.
Yeah. I take a very kind of materialist view to mental health too, in that my mind is not separate to my brain. Like, my mind is the product of my brain, which is an organ with chemicals running through it.
That is subject to
physical
chemical reactions that are beyond your control.
Yeah. So, there are chemical reactions beyond my control, which for some of those I now take medication. But there's also things like how well I've been eating, how well I've been sleeping, what the weather's been like, and how that's affected my body. Am I in pain during that day? And that is on top of what happened that changed my mood, that made me think these things. What random other thoughts popped into your head that could have changed your mood? Which happens to me a lot. Like, I can be having a great day, and then just out of nowhere, I can think of something terrible that affects my mood. So I find for something like mood in particular, the causes of a change in mood are never just one thing. And something this has made me do is like, well, this is another correlation causation thing. Something that I grew up doing, because this is how my parents view the world, is that anything that goes bad is someone's fault. I was late today to come here. That was someone's fault. Could have been my fault. Could have been the person that parked my car into the driveway. But no matter what happens, it has to be someone's responsibility that happened, whether good or bad. But that doesn't take into account all the random things that you faced in the day that affect how the day goes. If something someone says makes me feel bad, and then I feel bad the rest of the day, these days I really try not to blame them. Not to just put it on that one thing that one person said, because there are a lot of other things that happened during the day that could have affected my mood one way or the other. And that what this person said seems like a big deal, but like nothing happens in a vacuum.
People don't do things just because they're assholes.
Often not, yeah.
Wow, that's such a mature way of looking at things. I should take that view more often, probably.
Yeah. Something I worked out in therapy was that my personality really needs to fix things. I guess that's why why I got into teaching, why I'm getting into social work. But I really have a strong drive to help. And something in therapy that I've really had to work at is A, not everything's my problem to fix. B, some things are unfixable, and C, sometimes other people need to just be let to do their, to fix their own shit. Yeah, it's kind of a Zen realization that shit happens and you just got to deal with it. Like it doesn't have to be someone's fault. It doesn't have to mean anything. It's just how things are.
Sayke, would you like to talk about one of your prepared topics?
Okay. One of my prepared topics that I picked was dreams,
Oh, interesting.
because I thought that would be fun.
What is the last dream that you remember happening?
I remember all my dreams.
Really? Do you dream every night?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I don't remember them forever. I don't have an eidetic memory, but like, I will always remember the nights before dream. I remember what I dreamt last night. Didn't really have a plot, but, stuff happened. My dreams were always kind of like adventure-y in like the Indiana Jones sense. And I don't have nightmares in a way that I've actually have to redefine what counts as a nightmare for me, because I don't have scary dreams.
So how have you redefined what a nightmare is if you don't have scary dreams?
A nightmare for me could be one of two things. It could be like a really sad dream, where one of those dreams where you're talking to like an ex, or your grandma's just died or something like that. So like a really sad dream where you can't fight your way out of it. That's kind of a nightmare for me. Or just the frustrating kind of dreams where you wake up feeling bad. So it's not scary, but it's like the dreams where you get so frustrated. It's so, whether it's a cyclic dream that just keeps repeating itself, or like you're at school and you didn't remember a test. That kind of fits the nightmare mold in that you wake up feeling worse for yourself. But I don't have scary dreams.
Like you're not when you're being chased or attacked or anything like that.
No. I mean, I do have those dreams.
But you don't get that panic.
No, I always end up killing whatever
Really?
happens.
You win in those dreams.
I always win those dreams, yeah.
I never win those dreams.
I'm a very active dreamer, so I have some level of conscious thought in them.
Do you full on lucid dream? Like you can control everything?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow. Is that something you've trained yourself to do, or can you just do it?
I'm not sure, but I can say a monster turns up, tries to chase you in the dream. I can either turn around and make myself bigger, stronger, scarier and defeat the monster, or I can just manipulate the dream around me to make the chasing monster not effective.
Wow.
For instance, recently, I don't know if you've ever watched Supernatural.
Yeah, a few of the early seasons, yes.
Okay. So the actor that played Lucifer, Mark Pellegrino or something?
I might know him if I saw him.
Yeah, I think you would. He's like one of those actors that, you see him and it's that guy.
Yep.
Anyway, I had a dream like recently where I was kind of like a minion of his. And the thing about his Lucifer is that he doesn't care about anyone, so you can't get on his good side. Like, and he'll just kill anyone randomly. So there's no like convincing him to not kill you kind of thing. And so that was like the premise of the dream, was like, try not to get killed by this Lucifer. And so that could have been scary, but I ended up taking him out to lunch. I was like, okay, so just make him happy. Took him out to lunch, had a really good lunch, had some laughs, woke up.
You have the most amazing dreams.
So, yeah, it's either that where I'm like logicking my way, changing the dream situation, or I just fight my way out to the point where if dreams get really overwhelming for me, like say zombie horde levels of can't fight these guys individually, I in the dream will literally explode and supernova and take out the whole dream universe and start again. It's like, okay, this dream isn't working, new dream.
I'm really jealous of your dreaming abilities. When I dream, first of all, I never finish anything. So I never have a sense of accomplishment through dreams. Maybe it's because I have an alarm that wakes me up very abruptly. But even if I'm doing something I'm enjoying, it doesn't finish. So I don't get satisfaction from doing anything. And I don't often have outright nightmares anymore. I did more when I was little. But I would often have ones where I was being chased, usually by something like a dinosaur. And that's like something huge and unstoppable. And I'd just be trying to run or hide. Like it would be... Like there'd be a T-Rex outside my primary school and it could, it would smash through the walls and I'd just be trying to get somewhere safe. Lately, they're not nightmares, but they're kind of frustration dreams I have that I'll be in like a physical fight scenario and I'll be trying to like defend myself or punch, but like my punches always miss.
Yep.
I don't know what that means.
I kind of, yeah. I don't know how many physical fights you've actually been in.
Like 0.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Like your brain has no literal context of what it feels like to land a punch.
Yeah.
So it has trouble like you've seen punches on TV, you know what a punch is, but from a first person perspective, you've never actually landed a punch.
Yeah, I don't know the physical sensation.
Yeah. And I have that problem too because I've never really been in a fisticuffs fight myself. But in those situations, I tend to give myself like magic powers.
So when you win, it's not by punching, it's by like growing to giant man size and squishing someone, which is not a realistic sensation you could ever.
Yeah. Or
Right.
or throwing a fireball.
Yeah.
Something like that,
I also dream a lot in as if I'm playing a video game. So it'll be my viewpoint will be like it's a first person shooter with like an assault rifle up and even an ammo counter that I can see in the corner of my vision.
Yeah.
It's usually not directly from a specific game, but it'll be from a familiar environment like on the island from Far Cry or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of that?
Yeah, I get lots of games or lots of dreams where I'm living in the dream world, or living in the game world, sorry, especially Pokemon, because I'm Pokemon mad. I have been since Pokemon came out, when I was like 12, I think. So I have lots of dreams where I'm in the Pokemon world, like just living there, but like game system rules will still apply.
Like when you walk through tall grass, you'll just get randomly attacked.
Yeah, kind of. Like health bars will still kind of apply.
So it's not like you're watching the Pokemon TV show where those kind of statistics are not visible. It will be like in the game world.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm actually in the world. So I'm in a world where like HP shows up over people.
What have you been playing lately in terms of games?
Lately, I always play about 5 different games at once.
Whoa.
Not simultaneously.
Yeah.
But
not like on 5 different screens.
Yeah. No, but like I kind of get a little bit ADHD in that if I play a game for too long, like I have to go and play something else. And some games I play on a laptop on my bed watching TV. Some games I play on a desktop which has far better specs and can play difficult games. So I've been playing on my laptop. I've been playing Fallout New Vegas, which is possibly my favorite Fallout game because I really like the faction angle.
Yeah, and they're also complicated and morally ambiguous.
Yeah.
It's not like these are the good guys, these are the bad guys.
Yeah.
Either kill all the children or save all the children.
I mean, the Legion's pretty much the bad guys.
Pretty much. But even they have, like, they give them an angle on why they're enslaving people and all that.
Yeah. And they're very pro-gay rights.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
I never finished New Vegas. I don't think I got up to their pro.
But in like a really sexist way.
Oh, okay.
Like women are just for breeding, men are for fun kind of way.
Like in a Spartan way.
Yeah, very, very much like that,
right.
Which fits. But no, I like the fact that you have to go to all the different groups and kind of get on their side. And then if you do, they'll join you in the final battle.
Ah, okay.
That's kind of spoilers, but yeah, I really like that. But then I've been playing Fallout 4 on my PC, which I really am kind of over now.
Does it have the same sort of faction system?
Yes, but it doesn't pay off at the end. Like, you have to kind of kill off everyone you're not
allied with.
Yeah, you have to pick one and then kill all the others. I mean, the graphics are better, but...
Do you like the whole base building mechanic?
I did to start. Like, I really liked that building a township kind of feel. I wish it had been better. Now, if I play through, I barely do any of it because I'm just like, this could have been great. It wasn't. I wish it had more of an effect on, like, the game.
So I guess when you build your township, like, you get attacked by people, but it doesn't affect the main story?
Yeah. I like games where you, like, if you would improve an area, then go away, and then come back, you can, like, see the you can see the effect that your improvements have made on which is so rare in games.
I feel like it used to happen more.
A game that's recently tried to do it and has had some success is Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh, yeah.
Where you improve the habitability of planets. And so once you've improved the habitability to a certain extent, you will start to see certain changes. Dragon Age Inquisition did that a bit as well, but not great. I think sometimes they have lofty ideas, but then the execution of them is a real letdown.
I read an article, I think it was on Kotaku recently, about the making of Mass Effect Andromeda, and it seems like it was a very, very troubled development cycle, and that, as you say, in the first 2 years of development, they had all these incredible ideas. There was going to be like almost No Man's Sky ambition of a new Mass Effect game, but then...
Well, No Man's Sky was such a letdown.
Yeah. And then in the end, like, most of Andromeda was made in the last... They were like in crunch for the last 18 months making that game, and they cut so many corners.
I hate it when they do that. I really do. But it's something that BioWare does a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a different... Did they give it to a different team as well for Andromeda?
I think so.
Yeah. You know, when they'll make up a new team, you know, BioWare Montreal or whatever, and it'll be an entirely different set of people from different studios who had nothing to do with the last game.
Yeah. The thing I love and hate about BioWare, all my favorite games are BioWare. Like, Dragon Age is my favorite game universe. They have really good development teams, really good storytellers who have the potential to make amazing games, but their business side, their owners, are too corporate to... That sounds so left-wing. Like, they get too sidestruck by corporate saying the game has to be out by this date. They get side-blinded by marketing. The marketing starts going full ball before they have, like, proper games to back them up. So they make lots of promises that they don't end up keeping.
They're owned by EA, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, I've still never played Mass Effect 3 because it's not on Steam. It's only on bloody Origin.
Yeah. No, I have so many, like, my desktop, like, bar down the bottom has the Steam icon, then it has the Uplay icon, and then it has the Origin icon, and then it has the Blizzard icon.
Do you use GOG as well?
No. Yeah. That's the one thing I don't use.
I only use Steam and GOG, pretty much. Oh, well, I started on... there was a weekend for Overwatch recently.
Okay.
I played a bit of that. I didn't end up buying it, though.
I don't play multiplayer games.
Yeah, I find competitive multiplayer frustrating because I'm not very good at Twitch mechanics. Like, people just shoot me dead. I think Overwatch was a very conscious effort to draw in those type of gamers by making it very accessible and team-based and having a little role for everyone. But even so, like, because I was playing with a friend of mine who's on, like, level 250, he's prestige multiple times.
Yeah.
So the matchmaking was so, like, he would drag me into matches with much higher ranked people than I was able to deal with. So I just play Mercy and try and heal him as much as possible, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm not really into shooty games, and I will not play a first-person shooter. I have to have third-person.
Is that a physiological thing, like in terms of the field of vision and the motion blur and all that? Or is it more an ethical thing, I guess? Because so many first-person shooters needlessly violent and...
No, I don't mind violence. Like, I will slaughter the fuck out of, like, Skyrim, but I need to be able to see the character.
Oh, okay, yes.
Like, I really like having a character I can look at and manipulate and, literally see them walking through the world. I suppose I wouldn't like VR very much either for that reason. I don't like the field of vision. I don't like first person. If I could have third person vision for myself, that would be great.
Do you play the Fallout and Elder Scrolls games in first or third person view?
Third person.
Interesting.
Do you play them in first person?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
They're meant to be. I mean, they were originally... I feel like, especially if you're a melee character, third person is much more difficult to just like... Because the hitboxes in Bethesda games are so floaty and broken. It's impossible to hit anything in third person.
Yeah.
Well, for me, anyway.
Just float and hit. And just run up and hit and then bomb back.
Yeah.
No, the only time I use first person I never use it in Fallout games. I used to when I use sniper rifles a bit. But the only time I use it in, say, Skyrim or Oblivion is if I'm building up my archery, because you can't really do that in third person.
Yeah.
Well, you can, but you can't aim for shit.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. My first Fallout, I've never played Morrowind. My first Fallout game was Oblivion, so I guess I've never really played the older games.
Yeah, I think it was even harder to play in third person in like Morrowind. It was pretty janky.
And like I've tried to play, I don't play any Fallout game before Fallout 3.
Yeah, the first ones there's a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
I started playing Fallout 1 once, and it's amazing how many well-known actors are in that game.
Yeah.
Doing voices.
Yeah.
Like
Ron Perlman.
And just weird character actors. I think the guy who played Monk is in it.
Oh, yeah.
Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah.
He's in it, yeah.
They tend to get like a few known names in all of them.
But I think back then, those people weren't even names. They just happened to get actors who later became well-known.
Because like Liam Neeson's in 3.
Yeah, and like, I don't know how to feel about when they put big-name Hollywood actors in video games like that. It seems kind of a bit of an attention grab marketing thing.
I guess it depends on if they're character actors and their voice can be anyone. Like with Liam Neeson, it was just like, oh look, Aslan's there. Yeah. Kind of thing.
And I feel bad for like professional voice actors whose job it is to do this.
Well, something I kind of get sick of is like when you get like a really big voice actor, like the guy from Mass Effect.
The male Shep?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's in everything.
Was that not Troy Baker?
No, not Troy Baker, the other one.
Nolan North,
yeah. So you get someone like Nolan North who just gets all the jobs.
Do you want to talk about another prepared topic of yours?
Sure. I think another prepared topic I thought about was sex.
Oh, interesting. Because I put sex on the list. And because like I mostly talk to people, friends close to me on this podcast, I was wondering if anyone was ever actually going to pick this topic. Because it's something that isn't talked about a lot, at least in the circles I'm in, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's one of my favorite things to listen to on podcasts, perhaps not from a voyeuristic point of view.
No,
it's just
almost like an academic point of view.
Yeah, it's just refreshing to hear adults talk about it and not fucking giggle.
Yeah. My closest friends, when we get together, we pretty much a majority of what we talk about is sex related, which is good. I like having really open sex positive conversations where we can just, scroll through Tumblr looking at dicks or talking about sex toys in real, like, in-depth mechanical ways,
So how's your sex life, Sayke?
It is non-existent, but in a complicated way. I've had a real journey trying to figure out my sex life recently, and its non-existence and why I'm so fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of took the topic of sex as including sexuality.
Sure.
Because they are intertwined. But no, I identified as gay male for many, many years. But then more recently, I've kind of been thinking more about that because I'm still, phallocentric in my interests, but I don't identify as male anymore. I've kind of come to the conclusion that I am more genderqueer or non-binary. And that kind of mixes terms up a bit because I'm still male-bodied and I still like male-shaped bodies, penis, no boobs bodies, but I don't identify as male, so I can't be a gay male. So I'm kind of queer is how I think of myself these days.
How is that reassessment practically affecting the relationships you're seeking out?
Well, there's another aspect to it, which I don't know if you've heard about or not, of the sociosexual orientation, which I was introduced to by a sex therapist podcast called Sexuality with Dr. Darryl Ray. And he talks about the sociosexual scale being kind of like the Kinsey scale, but instead of going from really gay to really straight, it goes from really introverted and monogamous to really extroverted and polyamorous.
Okay.
So everyone kind of sits somewhere on that scale of how satisfied they are with the number of partners they have, how much sex they need, how kinky or expressive they need to be within the sex that they have.
This seems like a lot of factors to be putting on one scale.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like a multi-layered scale.
Oh, so it's not, I guess, it's not two-dimensional from one thing to another. It's 3 or 4, like there are many different axes.
Yeah, and I may be mangling the theory of it. But it kind of goes into the theory of asexuality as a scale as well for how sexual someone is.
And is that just a measure of libido that can be chemically measured?
No. It's more a scale of interpersonal desire, because on the scale, sitting kind of in the middle of that scale is demisexuals and asexuals, but not aromantics. So people who are looking for romantic relationships but not sexual relationships, or demisexuals who are people who are looking for both but need to have a strong personal relationship with someone before they can have a
sexual relationship.
I mean, they could kind of have a satisfying sexual relationship. And that's where I'm kind of finding myself fitting. I really have to be invested in someone to have satisfying sex with them, or to even get really turned on by them, which makes having sex with different people kind of difficult.
Yeah, because it's a big emotional and time investment.
Yeah.
To find that kind of person, I suppose.
Yeah, because I started out when I was in my teens and early 20s. That's how I was. I was just like the kind of person to fall in love with people and just want to have like fairy tale romances. When I got more sexually active, like I tried just having casual sex, and I found it actually really difficult to get turned on by people, like physically in the act, get turned on by people.
Even if they were really hot?
Yeah.
Wow.
If I wasn't like really into them, really invested in them, which kind of led to a lot of sex, like one-way sex, which is fine. You know, sometimes you just want to give a blowjob, but other times you're kind of like, what am I getting out of this?
I guess like if it's just like a casual sex environment, there might be some consolation. I don't know, maybe you can tell me that even if you're not getting anything out of it, as we said before, you like to fix things and make things better, and you're at least making someone happy for a few minutes.
Yeah, no, and that's a big factor in it. I really like giving people orgasms.
It's great.
Yeah, and often I'm fine not having an orgasm if I'm giving someone else. That's like a fun couple of hours
Sure.
or 5 minutes, whatever it takes.
That's definitely one of the things that is most grossly overstated in popular media, the idea that both people have to orgasm and orgasm at the same time and
Yeah.
of the same intensity. And
Yeah. And I've had some people get really quite offended at the idea that I will happily make them orgasm as much as they like, but they won't be able to make me orgasm.
Mm. And I understand where someone would be coming from with that. But
Yeah.
because there's, are you not attracted to me? And to take it personally, I definitely get why. But yeah, it's something I think people shouldn't necessarily take so personally.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes it gets to the point where like if I want to have like if I just want to have sex with someone to like entangle bodies for a bit, make out for a bit, because sometimes I just want to make out with someone, and if that means giving them an orgasm, I'm fine with that. But to find someone who's happy to just like get an orgasm, not give one, make out, I have to find someone who's really quite selfish in a way, because, if I find someone who's wanting to reciprocate and do everything for me and be like what you would think of in society as like a caring lover kind of thing, it's not going to work. And there's going to be, anywhere from them feeling bad to them having a full-on tantrum.
There should just be a dating app that has like this 3-dimensional socio-sexual scale thing represented, like the stars in the sky in Skyrim, the constellations where you pick your perks, and you pick all the things that you're into, and then all the things that you want in a partner, which may not be the same things, and then there should be an algorithm that just matches you with people.
Like, I would really like to find someone that I just gel with and who I can give amazing orgasms and who can give me amazing orgasms because, we're so into each other. And I would be completely monogamous with that person. It's either that or it's, I can just give orgasms to different people and not get anything and go home and read some story porn and give myself orgasms.
It's funny because it sounds like your ideal relationship is a very traditional and conservative definition of one.
Yeah. Whereas at the same time, I'm very liberal sexually and open to almost anything.
Yeah. It's just this is the thing you're into. And it's not even something that it sounds like you've arrived at because of any particular conservative conditioning of your own upbringing. It's like I've read and explored all these things and this is what gets me off.
Yeah, and there's actually, Dr. Ray talks about there's actually quite a biological underpinning to someone's sociosexual orientation. So I would say I'm quite conservative in what I'm looking for in a relationship in that aspect, like sexually and stuff, we can be as kinky as fuck. But like in what I want in a relationship can be quite conservative because both my parents are very conservative in what they look for in relationships. And so I've physically inherited that through them. That's how I'm wired in a way.
But the opposite also happens, right? Like people totally rebel against how they were raised in terms of values.
Yes, because for some reason, well, for lots of reasons, the conservative end of the sociosexual scale is valued a lot more socially than the other end. Whereas in a utopian scale, everyone would be accepted for where they sit on that scale, and they would be able to do what they would want to do or what they would like to do, or what they're built to do. But, those conservative monogamous relationships are highly valued within this patriarchal heteronormative society that we have. And so lots of people think they should be in those relationships and so aim and have those relationships and are either unhappy or they cheat or they, do this or that and don't feel completely satisfied with their relationships. but just do it because they think that's what you're supposed to do.
Is there ever any blowback in the sex positive community from people expressing that they are actually into a conservative idea of a relationship?
Sometimes, yeah, especially in queer communities. Like, you'll get really eager people who will be like, well, everyone should be bisexual or pansexual, and everyone should be polyamorous. And you know, some of the more grown-up people will have to say, well, no, you know, not everyone's into that, and that's okay, you know? Not everyone wants to get fisted, and that's okay. Not everyone wants to go into hard kink, and that's okay. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with hard kink in consensual, you know, well thought out, well planned out environments. But it doesn't have to be nothing sexually has to be for everyone.
It's just that this one kind of relationship was, I guess, the dominant status quo that when the sexual revolution began, people were fighting against.
Yeah.
They were fighting against having to fall into this norm.
Yeah.
When all the time, that kind of relationship was never the problem. It was the enforcement.
Yeah, on everyone. Which is just as bad as the enforcement, you know, if everyone was forced to do the opposite, you know. It's like saying, you know, everyone being forced to live in extreme fascist society is bad, but so is everyone being forced to live in an extreme communist society.
I do think if everyone were forced, though, to live in a polyamorous fisting utopia, that would be entertaining for a while.
Well, and, you know,
as an observer, saw
furniture, chairs would look different.
Entirely different design.
Lots more donut cushions. But yeah, like if we lived in an overbearing matriarchal society instead of an overbearing patriarchal society, things would look different, but they wouldn't be necessarily better.
Are you at the moment actively looking to find a relationship like the ideal one you described?
Not really. It occurred to me recently how much work relationships are. Like, I met a guy on Grindr that I started sleeping with, and it was fun, and it could have turned into a relationship if he didn't turn out to be a racist. Heads up, don't use the N-word in casual conversation. But even that aside, like, organizing times to meet someone to do relationship stuff, whether it's sex or non-sex stuff, like the scheduling is stressful. When you're studying and you have a life and you want some downtime just to yourself, like, unless you're immediately in a relationship where you're living with someone and spending every day with them, where you spend your downtime with them, it's so much work, and I just don't know if I want to do that at the moment.
Is that something that you're planning on doing in the future, like after you've finished your course, for example?
Maybe, with provisos. Like, kind of the rut that I got into when I was pursuing relationships and they weren't working was that I would find myself having to do all the work. And it was kind of built into that, you know, wanting to fix everything, you know, wanting to make something nice, in that I always had to organize everything. And it just got into a rut of I was organizing everything. I was doing all the sex. I was making sure we still liked each other. And if I do get into a relationship, I would want to know through practical, visible things happening that the other person was as into me and as invested in the relationship as I was, which so far, no, for a long time, no one's been willing to kind of put forward. And so I've been just fine with nothing. I watch a lot of porn. Porn is great.
So you're happy enough for now, while your priorities are education-based, to just be on your own?
Yeah. Even when my priorities are life-based, I think it'll be important to like get my occupation, get my life in order, be happy with that before I try and add anyone new to it. I mean, unless I'm always open to just something happening, you know, someone coming along and saying, hey, I'm interested in you, and going, okay, see what happens. I'm kind of easygoing with it and just not fussed. I don't think relationships are something that, as a society, we should feel incomplete if we don't have them. You know, I don't think you need to be in a relationship to be a worthy person.
Yeah, of course. Well, Sayke, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you for having me.
And I would love to get you back on and we'll talk about more nerdy stuff in the future.
Definitely.
Cheers.
Thanks.
If you want to hear more of Sayke's thoughts and thinkings about a wide range of interesting topics, they also appeared on an episode of the Gaytheist Manifesto podcast, specifically episode 115. It's a really good listen, so look that one up. It's the corrections and notes and extra addenda corner section that I don't have a consistent name for. That's the new theme song for it. I'll sing it every week. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. Sayke's Facebook page that they made after seeing Jurassic World was Jurassic World has probably the best use of the Chekhov's Mosasaurus trope in film to date. I found that really, really funny after I saw the movie and read that. It's a reference to the principle of Chekhov's gun, which is... So Anton Chekhov was a playwright, and he said a few times that if there's a gun hanging on the wall in the first act of your play, then in either the second or third act, it has to be fired. Otherwise, you should just get rid of it. Sayke was correct about the actor who played Lucifer on the TV show Supernatural. It was Mark Pellegrino. Sayke was also correct that he's one of those actors who you see and you go, oh, that guy. He's done a lot of TV work. You would probably know him. Go Google him. You'll know the guy we're talking about. The article about the troubled development cycle of Mass Effect Andromeda that I talked about was called The Story Behind Mass Effect Andromeda's Troubled 5-Year Development by Jack Schreier. It was published on Kotaku on June 9th of this year. That's 2017 for the time travelers. It's a very in-depth piece of reporting. I recommend it if you're interested in game development. The first 3 Mass Effect games were developed by BioWare's Edmonton studio, while Andromeda was made by their Montreal division. Fallout 1 did indeed have a ridiculously stacked cast of voice actors. Released in 1997, it included the voice talents of Keith David from Platoon, The Thing, and Community, Brad Garrett, who is Robert from Everybody Loves Raymond, Ron Perlman, you may know as Hellboy, CCH Pounder from The Shield and Sons of Anarchy, Pamela Adlon from Louie and Californication, Frank Welker, who's the voice of Megatron from Transformers, and none other than Richard Dean Anderson, MacGyver himself, and also known as Colonel Jack O'Neill from Stargate. Ridiculous voice actor cast. The game also featured a murderer's row of high-profile voice actors. Those were just the live-action people that you may know. The voice actor Nolan North has actually not voiced a character in any of the Mass Effect games. In the first 3 games, the male version of the player character Commander Shepard was played by Mark Meir, and in the latest game, Mass Effect Andromeda, the main male character Scott Ryder was played by a voice actor named Tom Taylorson. Quite a few fans online have noted the strong similarities between Taylorson's voice and Nolan North's. If you want to determine your own sociosexual orientation, there's a fairly short test you can find online. Just search for Sociosexual Orientation Inventory. I promise you it's not like a shitty BuzzFeed questionnaire or anything. Go ahead and try it. The results may surprise you. All right, I'm going to get a good night's sleep because I still have a lot of sleep debt from my Melbourne weekend. I just need to iron my clothes and wash my dishes and watch my games of my thrones first. As always, hit me up on the Gimme Empathy Facebook page or drop me an email at gimmeempathypodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd especially like to hear from from anyone who listens to this podcast who doesn't know me personally. I have so many questions, like, how did you find this? I don't know how to promote podcasts. I would be very interested if there was such a person out there. Anyway, I'll speak to you next week. Until then, stay awake. Stay awake. I'm going to sleep, but you stay awake. Watch for the monsters.